Hey friends! Today I'm going to show you how to knit. So if you want to start knitting, what you should do is get some yarn, and there is a sign like this that will show you what size of needles you need. You can have double point needles, which you can use to knit in the round. There are those with like knobs, the longer needles with the knobs on the ends. I would not recommend those because the weight distribution on those is a little bit tricky. But with a cord you can use it to knit either large rounds or large flats. Yeah, the weight distribution is just nicer. Get your yarn, get your needles, and then we're going to start. This is how you hold your yarn. Here's the short end for the cast on. The more stitches you want to cast on, the longer you should leave the tail here. So how you put your yarn to cast on? It's over those fingers, then it goes in between the middle finger and the pointing finger, over the hand, and then over the thumb. Here, where it comes together, you hold it with your fingers, and it's better to leave it like on the ends, on the tips of the fingers. Take 2 needles and then go under this line, right? It's like this, then you hold it like a triangle and then go under. Then you go under the thumb with both needles. Then you put over the pointing finger. Now you have a loop over the thumb. You put the loop from the thumb over the needles, and then you can use the thumb to kind of pull this. And that's how you get your first 2 stitches. I'll show it again. So, you have 2 needles. This is how you hold your yarn. You go under the yarn, then under the thumb. You put the yarn from the pointing finger around. And then you put this loop you have on the thumb over both needles and use the thumb to pull it tight. Did you see? Once you have this done, you can go right under the thumb the same way as before. Put the pointing finger around, then pull the loop over the needles, let it go, and then tighten the stitch. Again, under the thumb, put the pointing finger around, put the loop from the thumb over the needles, and then use the thumb to pull it tight. This is how it would look like in normal speed for me. What you do next is you hold the stitches and the needle and one of the needles with one hand, and then carefully pull the second needle out. Now you're left with stitches on your needle and a free needle. Leave the small tail hanging. Do not cut it because it will unravel all of it. And that's what I do. I hold the yarn with these 2 fingers and then, wait, yeah, these 2 fingers, it goes in between my middle finger and my pointing finger and then over my pointing finger. And I want the yarn to be as close to the tip of my needle as possible, because it will allow me to have as little movement as possible to knit. The other yarn, the other needle, I hold weirdly like this. It's because it's kind of like a lever between my middle finger and this part here. And this is what I do with this yarn. So this is how I hold it. It's also not very tight, like you can pull it, but it's tight enough that it's not very loose, right? And that's totally enough to keep a steady tension, which is great. You go into the stitch, kind of open it a little bit. It's, you know, I'm turning it so you can see better. You open it a little bit, and the yarn from the finger is already behind it. And you pull the yarn through, and then remove the stitch from the needle. It's now on your new needle and is knitted. I can show you again. You go into a stitch, pull the yarn through, slip the stitch from the needle on the left, and then it's on your new needle. You go into the stitch, like to the back, pull the yarn through, and then slip it off. You go into the stitch, pull the yarn through, and then slip it off. Once you have finished this, you turn it over and have the empty needle on your right. So what you see now is that it looks like this, and it has like little bumps here. What you see on the back is a purl stitch. And here we go into the architecture of knitting a little bit. What is a knit stitch on one side is always a purl stitch on the other side. So if you want this side to be even, like this, and this is how you see what knitting stitches are. The knitting stitches look like these. This means it's a knit stitch. Sorry, I have to undress the frog. The purl stitches are on the back. And the purl stitches on the back look like minuses. And they're kind of like this. So this is how it looks. So if you want a side that's just knitted and you work in the round, then you just knit, and it will be automatically be knit on one side and purl on the other side. If you work flat, you have to work knit on one side and then purl back, so you have the knitted stitch on one side and the other one on the other side. If you knit there and back, you will have a pattern like this. In a pattern like this, you can see it's the same from both sides. It means it's a knit stitch which kind of pushes in the back, and the purl stitch, the minuses, which kind of pushes forward. If you have a piece that's only knit, it will curl, as you can see on this shirt a little bit. I have to steam it so I can get rid of it. Like, you can work around this, but yeah, if you knit in both directions, it will stay flat all the time, no matter what you do. And I kind of prefer this for simple projects because I don't have to block them or anything, and it just works. You can also switch up knits and purls in a row, and then you will get something like the elastic for socks that I have here. It's 2 knits and 2 purls in a row, so it becomes stretchy. Change it up and create like different patterns with knits and purls only. What we do in the row back, we will purl. Purl is the reverse of knit. It means the yarn you will have like in front of the knitting, not in the back of the knitting. You go into the stitch like in front of the needle and then slip it over. It's only for the first stitch. You have the yarn in front of your knit, then it goes over your pointing finger, and then as usual. To purl, I go into the stitch from the back and then pull the yarn to the back of the needle and slip it off. I go from the back into the stitch, pull the yarn to the back, and then slip it off. And it's so much easier when you have smaller needles, honestly, because they're easier to hold. And while the big ones are easier to see when you just start out, I think needles of size like 3.5 millimeters or 4, maybe even to 5, are so much easier to use. As you see, I start just the same way. 3 knits, and here you saw me switching back to purl and switching back to knit. It's super simple. I knitted, and after my knit stitch I do just this little movement to bring it forward, then purl, bring the yarn back. It's tiny movements, and then I can knit again. And this is how it looks when I actually knit. And I hope you have fun. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!